Hi everyone and welcome back to the shack, and I bet you thought you'd have to wait a while for part 2 of this Amiga 600 series, but there is a need to get this one done and finished as a couple of other videos are queued up and dependent on this machine being done. And besides, I really can't wait to spend some time on an Amiga 600 to see if my 1992 perceptions of this machine are at all valid today, given all the new cool stuff we have nowadays, back in my day, etc, etc, etc. So, fresh from part 1, link on the screen if you need to catch up, we had all the bits laid out and grand plans ahead of us. This episode was sketched out as a full refurbishment and performing some maintenance and usability upgrades that will bring us to a point where we still have essentially a stock machine circa 1992 in terms of performance, but with some niceties thrown in, and of course looking brand new. So how did we get on? Well, let's find out. Here at the Shack, we'd like to give a big thanks to the sponsor of this video, my good friends at PCBWay. They'll be helping us out with our PCB fabrication needs and offer a very professional and high quality service for extremely reasonable prices. They can even populate your PCBs for you if you're tired of waving a hot iron around. There's a link to their website in the description where you can check out all of the amazing services they offer. Now back to the show. Well, the weather has been very kind to us for the past few days over here in the UK, so that meant that I couldn't resist chucking all of the plastics into our RetroBrite box and leave them to cook for a day or so. But before that, of course, everything needed a darn good clean. You know the drill by now. Bit of soapy water and a gentle scrub down to remove all of the surface dirt, getting more vigorous in places as needed. Don't ever scrimp on this step prior to a RetroBrite, as you really want to ensure that all the grime, dirt and especially oils are removed from the plastic in order that you don't get streaks or lines on the finished pieces. We're also being careful not to attack labels too roughly, as we want to preserve those as much as possible. A quick rinse to get the soapy suds off, and then it's on to Mrs. RetroShack's second finest tea towel. I'm not allowed to use her new ones and will leave them for a nice relaxing air and drip dry. Once dry, we'll chuck them in this lovely mix of warm water, hydrogen peroxide and sunshine, seal it all off and let them cook for a few hours. Now we can turn our attention to the keyboard, firstly popping off all the caps and making sure we don't lose any of the springs along the way. It's always risky doing this stuff out on the decking, as things can just ping off and disappear between the decking boards, but hey, keeps things interesting. As you might expect, the browny grey keys have suffered the worst, but some of the white keys do have distinctly yellow bits, so I'm really hoping that Mr. Sunshine treats them all equally nicely. And while Mr. Sunshine is doing his thing, we'll clean up the keyboard base, which in all honesty isn't in too bad condition at all. No bits of toast, dead spiders or lost jewellery in here, just dust. And it was while cleaning this out that my thoughts drifted to the work ahead, and I remembered I needed to print a bracket for the Gotek drive, so I got that underway on my faithful Creality CR10S. Time to check on Mr. Sunshine and see how his work is progressing. The white plastics are looking really nice, and the RetroBrite bath has brought them back perfectly. But the browny grey keycaps are going to take a little longer, so they go out for another few hours. And look, the protective cover on the label has survived the RetroBrite. You're coming off later. So with the plastic sorted, it's time to recap the board, and I'm using these fantastic Panasonic capacitors, which have the additional bonus of looking amazing too. Again, I won't be poking the internet bare with how I do the surface mount caps. There are various methods, and I suggest you do what you're comfortable with. I do. And with the recap out of the way and those sexy new capacitors looking all smug, it's time to pop the board back in, with what RF shielding it came with back in place. And with a quick check that the board still boots after me poking it with a hot stick, it's time to install some upgrades. And we'll start with the Gotek drive. To install this, we're using the original cables from the floppy that was in place beforehand, and I've 3D printed that fantastic bracket from Thingiverse. There's a link in the description if you need to print one yourself. We'll reuse this metal bracket from the original floppy to secure this at the front, and the original screws will fit at the back. It's a really nice fit. Stupidly, I didn't print out the version suitable for the little OLED display, so I'll reprint the right one for the next video. And in the meantime, it'll be sellotape to the rescue. Next on the agenda is to fit the new storage, and for that we're using this IDE to CF card adapter and this 4GB CF card as the medium. Going above 4GB involves installing additional kickstart patches and drivers and special formatting of the media, so we'll just stick with the 4GB for now. Next up is this 4MB memory module. By default, the A600 shipped with 1 meg of chip RAM, which is memory that is accessible by all of the architecture, CPU and custom chips, but this unit will add an additional 4 meg of fast RAM, which the custom chips can't access but the CPU can, and programs that run solely in fast RAM do run that little bit faster, so having a chunk of it is a good thing. And while we're talking memory, we'll just take off this nasty battery for now and replace this additional 1 meg of chip memory to the trapdoor, hopefully giving us a total of 2 megabytes of chip RAM in addition to the 4 megabytes of fast RAM we've just installed. Nice. Mr. Sunshine has also finished his work, so it's time to reassemble the keyboard in super quick speed. So as we reassemble the case, let's review what we've done so far. We've refitted our 1 meg chip RAM expansion, sans battery for safety. We've added in a 4 megabyte fast RAM board to the main CPU. We've chucked in a Gotek drive instead of the floppy drive, and we've replaced that chunky 85 meg mechanical Maxtor hard drive with a tasty new 4GB CF card. Oh, and a full recap. What could go wrong? Let's power on the machine and see what happens. Well, that's a comforting start, so let's place some ADF disk images on the USB stick plugged into the Gotek and reboot. And that's also a good sign. The machine is reading the Gotek drive and loading the selector program. From here we can assign ADF files to the various numbered slots, which we can then select with the buttons on the drive. It's all really quite simple. Here I'm assigning the workbench images to the first 4 slots and then pressing F7 on disk 1 to reboot and load from that image, which will hopefully load into a nice familiar workbench screen. Okay, so that's telling us that as far as the Gotek drive is concerned, we're all good. This screen is also showing us that we have 2 megabytes of chip RAM and 4 megabytes fast RAM, so we can conclude that those upgrades are also working. We wouldn't be here if there was a problem with the recap, so all that's left to test is the IDE to CF card storage. And to do that, we'll use the standard tools on the Workbench install disk to prepare the hard disk and install Workbench to it, which seems to progress without issue. I've edited out the 450,000 disk swaps needed to do this, but the end result is that all looks good there too. Removing the Gotek USB drive and rebooting the machine gives us a nice quick load to Workbench, and we're ready to use the machine. I'm very happy at this point and may well have a nice cup of tea to celebrate. Cheers! And I've really enjoyed working on this machine. I'm glad it's done. I've gained a bit of a newfound respect for the Amiga 600 that I just didn't have before. I'm really pleased with how this machine has turned out. Very surprised at how easy it is to work on. Very impressed with the ease of upgradability, and you know what? May just have found a new favourite Amiga, at least until I get my hands on a nice 1200. The next video this machine will be in is hopefully quite interesting, but there's another video to come before we get to that, and that's on a different machine entirely. So I hope you've enjoyed watching the refurbishment and upgrade of this machine. It's been great to have you along. If you like the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications of new content. If you'd like to support the channel, hit the join button for details of how you can do that. As always, please leave your comments below. We always love to read them. And until next time in the shack, it's goodbye from me.